Hello there, and welcome to A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley. As I said when I did my 1992's Candyman review, my plan was to immediately follow it up with the new 2021 Candyman, and here we are. Now, the thing I want to say first is the fact that I appreciate that this is not a Jordan Peele film. There is a perpetuation at the minute that, of course, people are saying, oh, the new Candyman is the next within the Jordan Peele catalogue of films, his expanding empire. And I have a lot to say about Jordan Peele and the direction he is taking horror, but I want to make it clear that I am in the school of people who goes, no, this is not a Jordan Peele film. This is a Nia DeCosta film. She is the director. She is the creative mind behind it. Yes, Jordan Peele was the producer on it, but this is Nia DeCosta's film. That being said, Jordan Peele is without doubt placing himself with a huge amount of speed and efficiency as the current master of cinematic horror. I mean, even after Get Out and Us, even after just Get Out, he cemented himself within the staple of horror narratives that's redefining the contemporary understanding of cinema horror and how cinema horror is told. Of course, historically we've had your John Carpenters, your Wes Cravens, Jordan Peele is definitely lining, your Jason Blooms. We are now at the point where Jordan Peele wants to be part of that legacy. Not only that, but he wants to reconstruct horror from a black perspective. And although he has gone on after Us to say, look, he's not making films specifically horror for black people, he wants the black experience of horror to be as normalized as your tradition, any other traditional white movie maker's horror narrative, to the point where, just because your films have black leads doesn't mean it's a black story. With Us, he absolutely wanted to make a film that could be any Americans. They just happen to be black Americans, because he wants to create that sense of normalization within black storytelling. But as I say, with horror, he is recrafting horror and introducing new ways of interpreting horror. And the fact that, as I say, he doesn't want to make it specific to the black community, he appreciates that there are ideas and traumas and certain haunting ideas that perpetuate, particularly within black communities, that when put forward to any audience, sort of allow people a refreshed idea of oh wow, this real world fear can be interpreted through the horror lens, and that gives it a revitalization. And so when Candyman was talked about, and the idea that this would be a return of Candyman, there was that sense of, oh wow, and because, as I said in my previous Candyman video, the subtext and the importance of the black experience within the original Candyman, and the idea of the unsaid, and the idea of horrors and traumas experienced generationally by the black community, can be represented through the visage of the Candyman, means that they were able to express storytelling and experiences that honestly before then hadn't really. Candyman is bringing a type of narrative, or had brought a type of narrative that hadn't existed before. And so the Nia DeCosta's Candyman had a lot to live up to, because it needed to have that same sense of social and cultural relevance. And in a post-Get Out world with Jordan Peele producing, there was a lot of pressure going, okay, so there is going to be political commentary. It needs to live up to the original Candyman. And with Yahya Abdul-Mateen III as your lead, you have that sense of, okay, so this is going to be where the original Candyman was the female perspective of the Candyman and the idea of representing female oppression and paralleling it to the black experience and the brutalization of the black community. This is sort of going full circle and representing the black experience, the contemporary black experience, and how the legacy of the Candyman works within a 2021 narrative. And honestly, with all of that being said, building up to it, this film is phenomenal. It is genuinely a true capturing of the kind of story that the Candyman was supposed to evoke. So you follow Anthony, the character played by Yahya Abdul-Mateen, who is an artist. And he lives a very contemporary, very cosmopolitan type lifestyle with his girlfriend Brianna. And it's supposed to represent that sense of almost the representation of the generation of black people who are getting away from the legacy of the black community and almost are losing their connection to that history and that trauma, you know, and almost trying to divorce themselves from it. Almost as much as Helen Lyle did, insofar as there is a certain level of appropriation, and the original Candyman is the idea of this woman coming into this community and appropriating their story for her own benefit. And the parallel there to the idea that he is, though a young black man, going into this community almost as a stranger to then appropriate the story for his benefit. And you see the parallels to the original Candyman. The beauty of this film is the fact that you could watch this in isolation without the original, but it creates this perfect interweaving of the original film with this film. So if you haven't seen it, you won't miss anything, but if you have, there are these beautiful, subtle layers and textures that you think that refer back to the original film, that add a level of haunting, and again plays into the theme of legacy and storytelling and the way that story changes and evolves. We even get a character telling the story of Helen Lyle from the original film, and the idea that her story has become part of this narrative, has become part of this lore and mythology, as if she, in their world, wasn't a real person. She is as fictional as she is to us, the audience watching the film. And the way that they use shadow puppets to tell these stories, again, adds this sort of mythology, but also this haunting sense to the storytelling that is incredibly creepy and chilling. And there are just certain motifs and styles that apply. There's this wonderful moment where Anthony is taking pictures, and the camera he uses is very similar to the camera that Helen uses. And again, it's only a very short scene, but you get that immediate reference back to the original. And there are just subtle touches like that that make you think of the original. In some respects, that could be seen as a fault of the film, which is the fact that though this film is excellent, though it really does honour the legacy of the original Candyman, there is that sense that by constantly bringing up the original, it is not as good as. It doesn't have the subtlety and the nuance that the original one had, because, and this is a contemporary horror and also just drama problem that we have in terms of storytelling, is the fact that this film is very clear in making its subtext text, where it outwardly says the troubles that are happening in the film. It outwardly discusses the community problems, the social problems, the racial problems, the problems with the police. It exposits everything, whereas the original trusted its audience to be able to pick up on subtle references and pick up on these interesting contextual ideas that you could interpret in different ways, but it was all there for you to be able to read into, whereas this film explains everything to you. And I think it is a thing that is just a modern way of telling stories. Unfortunately, in cinema, that modern storytelling doesn't trust its audience to have the intelligence to be able to do that level of work. And I think it's a shame, because this film, didn't need to do that, and it, with a few changes, could easily have had that same level of inference and subtlety to it. But that being said, as I say, it in other ways there is a sense of mastery. In relation to the original film, there is also that sense that you have the haunting of the original film throughout this film. You get that sense of, okay, what is the Candyman in this world? How does he exist? What is the Candyman as we'll understand it from this film? And it is not the same as the original. The beauty of this film and the beauty of the nature of storytelling and legacy is the idea that when Anthony first hears the Candyman story, it is a different story from the one Helen Lyle is told. It's a story of a man in the 1980s who, because of a misunderstanding, because of somebody putting razor blades into children's sweets, this man is brutalised and killed by I think it's police in this version of the story. Now, of course, in the original Candyman story, it harkens further back into the 19th century, where we have the son of a freed slave, and then the reason for his brutalisation. And of course, the film knowingly does this, and then of course shows you how that story relates to the other story, and relates to Helen Lyle, and how all of these stories line up until they get to Anthony. And the fact is that his character is part of this legacy. And there are certain revelations in this film and relationships that he has to the story that is perfect. So that when you get to the third act, and I'm not going to spoil it, you get that sense of, oh, I see that he is part of this history and this weaving tapestry of the Candyman. And the Candyman lives because this story is, the nature of the Candyman is the perpetual cycle. And the story of Anthony is the fact that he is supposed to be someone who had, he is the generation who has escaped the brutalisation, and yet he hasn't, and the story needs to live on. This is a really great film, notwithstanding the fact that it's not the original Candyman. Standalone, this is a great film and a great legacy of horror. And it shows the fact that, I know I've talked at length about Jordan Peele, but the fact that Nia DeCosta has such a clear understanding of horror and the things that she wants to discuss within horror, and the use of art, the fact that the main character is an artist, which of course harkens back to the original Candyman, and the relationship with art, the male perspective on it and the female perspective on it. Of course, you have the girlfriend Brianna, who becomes such an important character in the second half of the film, to the point where they're almost dual main characters. And it's not a perfect film, and you do get possibly that Jordan Peele sensibility to it, where you have comedic characters to try and sort of lighten the heaviness of the text. And I think that is a shame. There is this, the brother of Brianna, Troy, is unfortunately the comedy character, which is a shame for several reasons. Partly because I didn't think we need it, but also by the fact that he is a gay character in a gay relationship. And whereas when I discussed the original Candyman and said how, the whole point of the story was supposed to be about the parallel between the oppression of the black community and the experience of women, the oppression of women, You could have been able to do the same thing where you show the abuses of black people and the legacy of black exploitation with the abuses suffered by the LGBTQ plus community. Instead, they simply have him be this sort of light character to almost offset the brutality of the film. And I think it's a shame because I think it undermines the point it's trying to make there. But no, these are, again, sort of, yes, these are flaws, but they don't, it's very much a case of, you know, these are parts, but the whole is still so good and so rich, and this is the kind of horror we need to be seeing going forward. You know, and again, I'm sure Jordan Peele will direct films himself and will encourage other filmmakers like Nia DeCosta, will facilitate further storytelling like this because it is such a good story. And this is the kind of Candyman story that possibly I would be interested in seeing a sequel to, rather than the originals, the original Candyman, which frankly those sequels are best left forgotten. But yeah, this is a great, great film. Like a truly tremendous, probably the best horror of this year. We'll see. We're only in September. We'll see. Anyway, thank you for joining me. If you like this video, hit the like button, comment below, and share the video, because it's all helping in the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel and hit that bell to get notifications of when new videos are uploaded, and check out my back catalogue of almost 250 videos. I am very swiftly getting towards that 250 mark. Follow me on Twitter at Jordan_Woodley, where I tweet about films and TV shows, and I share these videos once they're uploaded to YouTube, either the day of or the day after. Thank you for joining me. Take care.